Good morning. Our opening words today are from the Aurora Levins Morales poem, Vahafta. Say these words when you lie down and when you rise up, when you go out and when you return, in times of mourning and in times of joy. Inscribe them on your doorposts, embroider them on your garments, tattoo them on your shoulders. Teach them to your children, your neighbors, your enemies. Recite them in your sleep. Here in the cruel shadow of empire, another world is possible. Imagine winning. This is your sacred task. This is your power. Imagine every detail of winning, the exact smell of the summer streets in which no one has been shot, the muscles you have never unclenched from worry, gone soft as newborn skin, the sparkling taste of food when we know that no one on earth is hungry, that the beggars are fed, that the old man under the bridge and the woman wrapping herself in thin sheets in the back seat of a car, and the children who suck on stones nest under a flock of roofs that keep multiplying their shelter. Lean with all your being towards that day when the poor of the world shake down a rain of good fortune out of the heavy clouds and justice rolls down like waters. Escalate your dreams. Make them burn so fiercely that you can follow them down any dark alleyway of history and not lose your way. Hold hands, share water, keep imagining, so that we and the children of our children's children may live.
Good morning. I'm Dora Kripapuri, a member of this congregation. The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal religious tradition to which this congregation belongs. If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it with me at this time. As we kindle this flame, we recommit ourselves to the mission of this congregation, to build a Unitarian Universalist community that transforms lives and empowers people to serve the world. May the light of this flame be welcoming to all who seek a liberal religious home. Our opening hymn this morning is number 338 in Singing the Journey, I Seek the Spirit of a Child. I invite you to sing along at home.
I seek the spirit of a child, the child who meets life naturally, the child who sings the world alive and greets the morning sun with glee. Children are real beyond our Lord. May I see joys a gift to our heart. I seek the freedom of a child who loves instinctively, who lights our day with just a smile and shines that light on all we see. Children are real beyond our fears. May I see hope's a gift to our tears. I seek the wonder of a child who sees delightfully. Now clouds encloud, now golden sun, imaginations true and free. Children are real beyond our laws. May I see faith's a gift to our eyes.
Good rainy morning. I'm Sarah Ford Knorr, another member of this congregation. Whether you're joining us on your smartphone, your laptop, from your TV, here in Raleigh, elsewhere in North Carolina, or anywhere in this world, we're glad that you're here this morning. This is one of our quarterly lay-led services, and if you're visiting us for the first time this morning, I'd like to offer you a special welcome. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, we are intentionally inclusive, liberally religious, and actively serving the common good of our shared world. That means that whoever you are and wherever you are on your own religious journey, you are welcome here. It also means that as Unitarian Universalists, we seek wisdom and inspiration from many sources, but we affirm our own individual experience and conscience is the best authority for our beliefs. We are committed to making our world more compassionate and just, and hope that you might join one of our many efforts to do so. If you're new to us, I invite you to fill out our visitor form. That's on our website, uufr.org/visitor form. And if you do this, you'll start receiving our weekly e-newsletter. Please feel free to join us for social hour immediately after the service. There are instructions about how to do this on our website. And although we can't yet greet each other in person this morning, at this time, I'd like to invite you to greet one another using the chat function on your screen. Good morning.
I am Tris Chagnon, your Family Ministry Director. Each month, our congregation focuses on a Soul Matters theme, which we explore through small group discussions, activities for families to do at home, and worship. Today's service is all about our January theme, imagination. Imagination can be described as constructing objects, sensations, or ideas in our mind without immediate input of our senses. Like picturing in your mind what to build with Legos before you pick up a single brick. Or what to draw before even having any paper. Or thinking about what it feels like to fly even though you don't have wings. It can also be described as forming new experiences in your mind. Maybe you start with things you have really experienced in the past, or stories you've read or heard, but you combine them in new ways and change them. Imagination is also problem solving and is fundamental to learning. Imagination needs practice, and you get better the more you do it. One of the best ways to train your imagination is listening to or reading a story, where you translate the words into images in your mind. Another great way to grow your imagination is to make up your own stories. When I was a kid, I had an imaginary friend named Duso. He was a duck-billed platypus who hosted a radio show. I named him Duso because my brother would constantly tell me the things that I imagined did not really exist, and I would respond, "They do so." I still remember tape recording his show in my front yard. It began with an opening song, actually, and the song invited Duso, who was rather shy, to come on out and to share his stories with us. One of his stories was about spending all his money on video games and not having any left for a gift for his mom on Mother's Day. Of course, Duso wished he hadn't done so. Our experiences in the past, real experiences, well, they teach us about cause and effect and understanding how to make decisions moving forward. But imagination is the tool we can use to construct a future that is different from the past. If we want our lives to change, first we have to use our imagination. If we want to solve problems in our world, first we have to imagine how those problems can be solved. Albert Einstein said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world." And Stephen R. Covey said, "Live out of your imagination, not your history." Today, we will get to hear 3 sets of adults and teens having conversations together about how they imagined something to build, to do, or to be. I am sending you all so much love.
This is the time in our service when we acknowledge some of the joys and sorrows of our community. If you'd like to share an individual joy or sorrow, I'd invite you to do so now using the chat function on your screen. I'd also like to share a sorrow that we received by email. Jennifer Stasic shares her family's sorrow at the sudden death of 13-year-old Xavier. He was loved so much by his adoring Aunt Jennifer and cousin Madison Keys. Jennifer and Madison, we hold you in our hearts during this time of grief. As we reflect on the shared joys and sorrows, as well as the joys, sorrows, fears, and hopes of our own lives, let's be together now for a time of stillness and silence, opening ourselves to spirit within us, between us, and amidst us. called by many names, but known to every human heart, that leads us to a fuller experience of life. After the silence, we'll hear hymn number 86 in Singing the Journey, Blessed Spirit of My Life. But now, let's be together in stillness and silence.
Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with ambition. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my wordless creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of my intuition. Then when life is done for me, let love be my legacy.
J.M. Barrie, the creator of Peter Pan, says that the moment you doubt whether you can fly, you cease forever to be able to do it. Here at UUFR, we have continued to fly, even as our world has turned upside down because of a global pandemic. So many of the good things we do here are the result of imagination, whether live streaming our worship services, creating story times, hikes, and other activities in support of young families, or staying connected through dinners and Wellspring programs. It's taken a lot of imagination to keep us in flight. And these things are only possible because of the generous financial support that so many of you provide. We try to make being generous as convenient as possible. I invite you to see the instructions that will appear on your screen during our offertory. It's now time for our offering. Please be generous, and thank you.
We have 3 readings today about imagination. Theodore Geisel, otherwise known as Dr. Seuss, says, "I like nonsense. It wakes up the brain cells. Fantasy is a necessary ingredient in living. It's a way of looking at life through the wrong end of a telescope, which is what I do, and that enables you to laugh at life's realities."
Reverend Teresa I. Soto asks, "What will become of a failure? What can be built with an honest mistake?" Keep paying attention. Keep dreaming and supposing that more is possible. We don't know the ending. And if you are tired, then it must be time to rest. Staying curious is like a muscle. We flex, reaching for what we don't yet know, and relax, leaving space for what is yet to come.
And finally, author James Baldwin writes, "Nobody is more dangerous than he who imagines himself pure in heart, for his purity is, by definition, unassailable." Continuing with this morning's theme of imagination, we have 3 conversations on the topic to share with you. We'll hear from Margaret Link and Madeline Clodfelter, who is my daughter, Josh Schaefer and his son Sam Schaefer, and finally David Patorti and his daughter Isabella Patorti. Let's begin with Marge and Madeline.
I'd be really interested to know how you look toward your future. Is it an imagination that has been growing, or does it change a lot, or don't you even think about it?
I think about it a lot, and actually ever since I was little, I think about it. My ideal thing when I was little was to be older. I always have wanted to be older. I imagine myself working really hard in high school to get into a good college, going to college and sort of branching out there, meeting new people, learning a lot. But I never really know what I want to major in or what I want to learn. I know I want to do something related to history or law or politics, something like that, or maybe even creative writing and poetry, something in that huge branch, but nothing to do with math or science. But I imagine it a lot, and I have been imagining it a lot for a very long time. It's actually sort of what occupies my thoughts most often.
I couldn't call what I did at that age imagining. My outlet was animals and horses. And so it just seemed to me that going to vet school, becoming a veterinarian, would be the way to live a life that I wanted to have. And so I applied to Cornell and got into the College of Agriculture. And nobody ever suggested to me that this was an unusual thing to do. That was fine for 3 years, and then I applied to vet school. And when I got there, they didn't talk to me about my grades or my abilities. They talked to me about the fact that I was a girl, and that was just really too bad. And they did not accept any girls into the vet school at Cornell that year. And so that's where I came up against real life.
When you were told that you couldn't go to vet school because when you were a girl, is that when you had to sort of start imagining what you'd do next because you couldn't.
I had one more year in college, and one of the things that came into that then was that I got engaged, and so that sort of changed my plans. I had given some thought to going to graduate school at Cornell. Then we came to Raleigh then in 1962, and we found the fellowship immediately. We had a lot of friends, and of course friends from the university. He was a professor at NC State, and so and we had 2 children by then, and so I stayed home with my children, and I imagined spending the rest of my life as a mother and a wife and a volunteer.
Yeah, but you're always active with like one thing. I know you're a very active person, like always having something to do.
And then my husband died, and I had to make a living. So, and the thing I didn't mention earlier was that my mother was a librarian, and I always said that never in my life would I become a librarian. And so I went back to school and got a library degree, and then had a career in the library. It was, and I think that when you go through things like this, it's with the imagination part of it, you learn a whole lot about yourself and what you're able to do, and sometimes that's a real surprise. What do you think about coping with having to change?
Change is harder for me, but the few times when I have changed, or when I have gone through things and I've like sort of eye-opening moments, it's just been so crazy so it's sort of like looking at the world sort of shifts and you look at it from a whole different perspective. And I think that's fascinating. And so one of the questions that sort of stood out to me to ask you was that Albert Einstein once said, imagination is more important than knowledge. And so I was wondering, you as a very logical person, would you agree with that statement?
I think that being logical makes imagination difficult. When change happens, my reaction to it is to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To find a solution to it.
Mm-hmm.
And until I find that solution, I'm agitated.
Yes.
And so, and there is where knowledge comes in, because the more you know about the world, the better decisions you can make.
Yeah.
Given the circumstances that we're in today, Madeline, you're looking ahead to a long future.
Yeah.
And how does that feel? And can you imagine how our world is likely to change?
And part of what I feel is responsibility, or like the apprehension for the responsibility I will one day have for sort of being handed this world that's sort of crazy and sort of divided. And so that's all I think I mentioned earlier that maybe politics would be something I'd like to learn about in college. And so that's one of the reasons why I would, just because I would like to make a difference in some way and for the better. I think you can't really imagine the world changing for the better if you don't plan to take in a responsibility in helping it change for the better.
We look to people like you to take a leadership role, and it's so wonderful to me to see women stepping up to the plate and being allowed to. I guess that's where I started out with this discussion, is that, I just wasn't allowed to do what I was capable of doing.
Like, as someone who will be sort of the next generation of adults in life and the next people making decisions, and if not running for office, then voting, it's good to know that the people before you were really able to make a difference, and that you'll be able to make a difference too.
Hi, I'm Josh,
And I'm Sam.
and today we'd like to talk to you about...
Imagination.
Back in about June, the pandemic was really starting to sink in. We couldn't see any of our friends. Sam couldn't play hockey because no one would keep a mask on. He couldn't take drum lessons anymore. We spent a lot of time staring out into our backyard. Now, it's not a boring place. There's a trampoline back there. We have this nice deck, but we wanted to see what else we could do, how we could improve upon it, how we could search our minds for whatever was rattling around in there and use those little bits to embellish and create a better world. In short, we decided
Build a treehouse.
there was one problem.
We have no idea how to build anything.
We knew what we didn't want. We didn't want it to look like we hired somebody to come and build something fancy for us. It had to look like something a couple of adorable knuckleheads put together themselves. In short, us. So it had to have our own unique signature. So the first thing we did was dig some holes and then fill those holes with these 6x6 posts, which were probably way bigger than we needed. And then we hammered those all together with these 2x8 boards. And then we hung the entire works on this 2x10, which probably weighs 150 pounds. It took us an entire week, way beyond anything we had imagined, to get this into the tree. And there are many, many, many snapped off lag screws in part of this brave oak tree, to which we apologize profusely. But we think that it forgives us because everything is still standing. Then Amber got the absolute genius idea of tearing down our old falling down crumbly fence and using it for the walls on our treehouse. So we got to repurpose something old and ugly and build it into our vision. That's the great thing about imagination, is once you actually get started, the ideas just start coming on their own. After about 6 months, right around Thanksgiving, we finally finished, as you can see, and we've added our own personal flourishes to it.
This is the ladder. This is how we get onto the treehouse. We have a sort of deck area around here. Oh, and over here as well. And here's the door. We're gonna put a door here one day. We have some wicker chairs to sit in. There's a window where you can see the street. There's a window where you can see those houses. And over here you can see our house.
Took about 1,000 screws, 300 trips to the hardware store, often 3 times a day. But as any great imaginer will confirm, it takes a great deal of tedium to bring your brain children to reality. But the best part is all the time we spent together, arguing, swearing, finally congratulating each other. And now, kids from around the block come and play in a pandemic-safe space that used to be just empty air. So it's something I hope Sam will remember and cherish all his life. Not just this hunk of wood, but the idea that you can take things in your head, all the beautiful things going on there, and put them out into the world where everyone can enjoy them.
And I am here with my daughter, Isabella Patorti, this morning to talk a little bit more about imagination. Now, Isabella, you and your brother Zane, both of you have been incredibly creative and imaginative since you were born. You were always drawing, you were painting, you were doing beads, you were being a photographer, you were being a writer. And you turned 18 in December, and as your birthday got closer, you announced this idea that I had not heard before, that you were going to start an Etsy shop. And for people who don't know what Etsy is, can you explain?
Yeah, so Etsy is a website where basically small creators, small businesses can post their products, sell through them, talk to clients, kind of reach a bigger base than they might, if they just have a website. Or just, like
So it's a lot of
social media.
handmade stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you also appeared with this big machine, which was a sewing machine computer embroidery thing,
Yeah.
and you had this all figured out. So what was this machine? How did you learn to use it, and what did you plan on doing with it?
So it's an embroidery machine. It kind of doubles as a sewing machine. I kind of just jumped right into it. I had this idea of what I wanted to do, and so I thought first step, get a machine. Just get all the supplies, and then I'll figure it out from there. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I talked to a lot of different people that knew what they were doing. I had to figure out a lot of stuff, myself, and kind of just figure out my style and what I like to do.
And what exactly is it? So you've got logos, you've got images, and how does that work?
Yeah, so a lot of the designs I get, I buy off of other sellers on Etsy, and then I plug it into my computer and embroider it. Or I'll have someone, come to me wanting a custom design, and I'll get it digitized, and then we'll kind of go back and forth, and I'll think of how I can kind of create their visual and do what they want.
So you're creating this stuff, and it's like sweatshirts and hoodies and things like that. And then how do you let people know what you're doing? You started with your social media group?
Yeah, I started with my friends, because I had been talking about getting this machine for a long time. I had envisioned, all the stuff that I wanted to do. I had seen other people, kind of have that and have their own business and watch it grow. And so I had just thought about doing that for a long time. So after I finally got my machine, I told all my friends. I was very excited, and they were very excited for me, and they wanted to support me. And so at first I just started selling, my products to them. That was when I was still trying to, figure out what I was doing.
And then it sort of grew a little bit, and I remember you going back and forth to the post office a lot and printing out labels, and we'd have to tape them on envelopes. So I got you a scale, and I got you this machine that prints out the square envelopes with the barcode on it.
Yeah, the labels.
And then, so you had all that to help you go, and then you actually launched your shop. Your birthday was December 10th. So you launched your shop, and then what happened? What did you imagine would happen when you opened the shop?
I'm not really sure. I guess I did not expect it to get much attention. Many small businesses, it takes them a while to grow and to get any attention. But I was very surprised with the audience that I had. I just immediately, I feel like attracted customers, I guess. I'm not even sure, I guess, from like off-site ads and stuff like that. But I was very surprised.
Yeah, I remember you coming down and you were like, Dad, all these people are ordering things from my store. And so it went from your social media friends to this bigger group. And now you've done this for less than 2 months, right? And how many orders have you filled in less than 2 months?
Through Etsy, I filled 40 orders, which is something that I, never had imagined. This was kind of something that I just thought that I would have fun with, for myself. I didn't think it would really go anywhere. I was just, looking at it, and I was like, this would be really, really fun. This is an outlet for my artistic side. But
and where are these? What's the farthest away that somebody has ordered from your Etsy shop?
Germany is the farthest away that I've sent to. So.
And where else? In
Canada.
Canada and all over the United States as well?
Probably California would be the farthest away in the United States, I think. So.
Wow. And so you had no idea. You imagined doing this, but then all of these things happened.
Yeah.
And it's called a joyfulboutique.com. And where did the name come from? What did you imagine the name reflecting?
Well, Joy is my middle name, and it's something I've always tried to stay true to. I think that's why my mom picked that name. She said, she wanted me to always stay joyful.
Hey, we picked that name.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
She wanted me to stay joyful. And so with my shop, it's something I want to bring joy into other people's lives. I want to, even if it's just, one package, I always get very excited when I have a package on my front step, and I just wanted to be able to bring a little joy in other people's lives, especially during this time.
Yeah, during this time, so the pandemic actually helped you with this, right? Is that an upside of?
It definitely was the bright side of the pandemic, because I could not have imagined myself doing this last year. I mean, with school, with college applications, sports, all these different things, I had no time for the things that really made me happy, I had not even touched my art supplies in a really, really long time. And so with staying home, every day I got back into it, and it's been a really, really great part of being at home.
So you're stuck in your room, and
Yeah.
you've got this imagination that wants to be expressed, and you can't go out and do a lot of things
Yeah.
you've done. So this is where your imagination went.
Yeah.
It had to go somewhere, right?
Yeah, it did. And
Wow.
so it's nice, to be able to do it just from my bedroom and bring my ideas to life.
And where do you imagine this will go in the future now that you've launched this shop?
I'm not really sure because, I didn't imagine any of this happening, so I kind of don't even think that I can plan the future at all because it's just, what's going to happen is what's going to happen. And I think it's always going to be something I love to do. It's not the career path that I am planning on taking, but I think it's going to be always a hobby of mine or just always a small little business that I can do.
Okay. Well, Isabella Patorti, thank you for this imagination conversation.
We'd like to thank Marge and Madeline, Josh and Sam, and David and Isabella for those conversations about imagination. And now please join us in our closing hymn, number 126 from Singing the Living Tradition, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing.
Come thou fount of every blessing, tune our hearts to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. While the hope of life's perfection fills our hearts with joy and love, teach us ever to be faithful. May we still thy goodness prove. Come thou fount of every vision, lift our eyes to what may come. See the lion and the young lamb dwell together in thy home. Hear the cries of woeful silent, feel our laughter like the sun. When we all serve one another, then our heaven is begun. Come thou fount of inspiration, turn our lives to higher ways. Lift our gloom and desperation, show the promise of this day. Help us find ourselves in union, help our hands tell of our love. With thine aid, O fount of justice, earth be fair as heaven above.
I hope you will join us for a social hour in one of our Zoom rooms after the service. But now, as we end this time of worship together, let us remember to use our imaginations to create a better world. May we do so with ever more love for one another, with ever more gratitude for this precious gift of life we share this very day, with ever more peace in our hearts, and with ever more hope for our own lives and this world we share. Amen.